Welcome to the DEI Effect. My name is Travis Brown, and we're back with Jimmie McMillian from the Motor Speedway. And Jimmie has a position that is an amazing position, doing some amazing work at the Speedway, specifically with DEI as a Chief Diversity Officer. So Jimmie, first question is, what is DEI to you?
So it's about making people feel included, giving people access, and making them feel like they belong. Creating the same pathways of equality that have existed for others, particularly white males, for quite some time. Creating an environment where we basically fulfill the promise that we're making to everyone. We are out there, we being adults, parents, leaders in the community, telling young people, particularly young people of color, that you can go to school. If you go to school, you study hard, you stay out of trouble, don't fight. That on the back end of that is some American dream of opportunity, that you can own a home, that you can own a car, that you're going to get hired. And for so many, they've called us and said, that's bullshit. Mm. You know, I went to school and I didn't make it through because I encountered some racist act, or I got the job and I've applied to a million places and I haven't got the job. And it feels like it's because it's not about what I know, it's who I know. It seems like I'm at the company and then I'm trying to get to a higher level, but I can't, and nobody's telling me why. I don't understand how you get on this thing called succession plan. I have a company, and my company creates great services at a great price, and I've pitched it to a million different companies out here that I can be a provider or a vendor or a supplier of services, but yet and still I'm not getting the contracts and I'm not getting the opportunity. What's up with that? DEI for me is answering that question and making sure the playing field is not only even and equal, but we are fulfilling the promise that we have made to every American, including our young people, that you, if you do the right things, will be competitive and succeed, and you will not be held back on the basis of your race, your gender, your sexual orientation, or your physical inabilities.
Yeah. Let me ask you, Jimmie, because you are a black male in an industry that there's not a lot of black male executives. People look at you often and say, and they do this to me too, they say, hey, you've made it, so surely the playing field is equal, because if you can make it, then anybody can make it.
No. I mean, that's crazy.
But no, I really do. I mean,
no.
This is part of the conversation that's out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's utterly ridiculous. I don't even know how to respond to that other than that's utterly ridiculous. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's so unequal. There are so many situations where I walk into an environment, I walk into a plant, I walk into not just an executive boardroom, I walk into a company and I don't see anybody who looks like me. And I think to myself, we are so far behind. Meaning we as black people or we as brown people. I can ride through neighborhoods and just look at the neighborhood and say, whew, this neighborhood, it looks like a whole lot of black people, Latino people. And in this neighborhood, there's a whole bunch of white people. And these houses are all houses that are $1 million, $2 million, $500,000, $300,000 and up. We haven't even made it where we have consistent people of color in the middle class. And so, no, we haven't made it. And the problem is when you go into most of these rooms and spaces, you're going to see Travis about 45 times in a year, and you're going to see Jimmie about 45 times in a year. You're going to see the same people. Believe me, folks. Believe me. There are more black men than Travis and Jimmie. They're out there. They're not getting opportunities at all. Not to mention the ones that are incarcerated. Not to mention the ones who are working jobs that are like $14, $15 an hour, $16 an hour. When you're sitting at your table and you're at your dinner or your gala or your ball or you're at your restaurant, open your eyes and look who's serving you food. And then tell me we made it. When they might be making $15, $16, $17 an hour. And no, that's not a lot of money. For those of you who won't do the math. The issue is there is a vast disparity, particularly when it comes to people of color in this country. And there are still people, when it comes to LGBTQ status, there are still people who have a huge problem with people and their sexual orientation and their sexual preferences in this country. And there are people who are still living in the shadows and are penalized for that and are being told, or at least whispered behind closed doors, I don't know if they could be a leader because they're gay. I don't know if they could be a leader because they're black. There are so many people who don't feel like they can be their authentic selves. And we're not even going to get to MBE, WBE numbers, where in most companies and businesses, if you take them to task and say, how many companies that are minority owned or women owned businesses have you hired or engaged, the answer is 0. And if they have hired a company, you say, is that company really, it's minority owned, but how many minorities work for them? In other words, was this company propped up by some majority white company to be an MBE, to hit the MBE status, but really all of the money is passing right back through to the white company? These are real things that are happening, and they have an actual impact on our society and on corporate America and everything we do. And so true DEI is looking at all of those systems and saying, what can we do to make sure the playing field, again, we're not trying to equalize it. In some situations, the MBE company should have a leg up. I'm just trying to make sure everyone's evaluated, given a chance and a shot to be seen at the table, given a chance at the job, the internship, given a chance at the opportunity to drive or the opportunity to work on a car, given an opportunity to do some of the marketing. I'm trying to make sure that people are being brought to the table and being evaluated fairly, and then able to present their best wares to the store.
Do you think there are areas that we are making improvement? Even though I'm going to agree with you right now, there's not enough, but like, are there areas that we're making? Is it diversity and equity and inclusion? Is it MBE stuff? Is it even the fact that some places now have a chief diversity officer? Is that progress?
I think the only place that we can tout progress is maybe in education, college education, at the higher levels of the number of students that we have who are going to college and going to universities and enrolled in college. Now, to do that, I have to take out the tremendous amount of student loan debt that many of them are incurring and will have to pay back. But it appears that if you want to go to school, there is a place for you to go to school today. It appears that in public service, meaning the police department, the fire department, in some of those places, they have done a significant amount of outreach to get diverse officers. But again, there's always this caveat in terms of promotions and people rising up to the higher ranks of those entities. There's been a lack of
entry-level jobs, first-level opportunities, but at the executive level, the C-suite, the board, still struggling.
Those are the places that we're hurting. We're starting to see on the entrepreneurial side a lot of interest and engagement, some education on how to get capital. Certainly. Which
is tough because we're in that race right now. We've gone through it in every realm, and everybody that talks about how easy it is to get, it's the gap to capitalization for black and brown business is significant still.
Significant gaps. You see the conversation though. I tell people, I think I might have told you this, Travis. This is the first 2 years ago was the first time I heard black people start talking about generational wealth, and that was only because they started rapping about it. Jay-Z started rapping about it. Now everybody wants to talk about generational wealth. Think about how crazy that. We are in 2022, and we just started working. We 6, 7 generations, 8 generations deep in this country, and we just started talking about generational wealth. And we're trying to figure out where are we making progress at. I think it is difficult to talk about our progress when I'm also close to so much of the sadness of the crime rate, the sadness of the dissipation of our family structure, the challenges that we face with mental illness and drugs and alcohol. It's so hard to celebrate our successes when the examples of our failures and the examples of how we've been held back are so prevalent. And then you walk into spaces where you're like I remember standing in front of the Carmel Palladium and looking at the Carmel Palladium, which I love, and saying, we don't own anything like this. Like, what do we own that's like this? And I'm in the track, and I say the same thing. Think about what the track is. The track was Carl Fisher, an automobile. He sold cars. He somehow bought a bunch of farmland, a lot of it, and decided to showcase his cars by building the oval back then, back in 1909, to showcase his cars by running around an oval. And then he built a racetrack. And that racetrack by itself made more money than the Pacers and the Colts at one time with no state funding. They just have a massive track that fits 400,000 people in the middle of a major city that's always been owned by white people. That's not a racist thing to say. That's a fact. And if you're a person of color and you're trying to gauge what progress we've made, how we've come along, yes, I know some successful black people. I don't know enough of them. I still also know black organizations that can't find a place to have a meeting on Sundays.
And I think this is. I love how you said that. I don't know enough of them, and I'm going to say, when I started out to do this podcast, I said, I want to tell black and brown success stories. And quickly, I had a list of 30, 40, 50, 60. Now I got 80 plus people coming on this. And I remember talking to one of a person on our team, and he looked at me and he said, there are 80 in the city. And I think there's an issue where sometimes we don't even know how well we are doing, not as a whole, but even that there are some to look to say there's a Jimmie and there's a this and there's that person to aspire to be. Going back to your mentorship with some of our young people, and so I know that's a step. But let me ask you this, and closing out this segment, Jimmie, is what's the big wish? Like, what's the big ask? What's the big goal? If it all works out, what does it look like? And how do we get there?
I wish that we would get to a point that I couldn't name all of those successful 80 people you probably have on your show. I wish we could get to a point where we could be quiet rich, where it just was like natural and normal. I wish we would get to a place where our success was normal and it wasn't special. It was expected. It wasn't exceptional. I want to get to a place where you're not a first, and you're damn sure not the only. My kids and I, when they grew up, we used to watch the Discovery Channel all the time, and we'd watch the deer try to cross the alligator-filled river, or we'd watch the lions hunt down the elephants. And I used to always say, look who they hunt down. They hunt down the person that's by themselves. They hunt by the animal that's by themselves. If you by yourself, you usually gonna get eaten. I have learned that we as black people are like the elephants, and the white people sometimes are like the lions. And we are the only race of people and the only species of people that takes our baby elephants and hands them to the lions and says, can you raise them and teach them how to operate in the jungle? Because many of us don't know how to do it. And some of us are able to learn and somehow survive as baby elephants and grow up into big elephants with the lions. But too many of us end up getting eaten by the lion. And we as the elephants wonder why. I think the goal one day is that we as elephants can raise our own babies to develop and learn and grow in the jungle as elephants. And without that ability, we're only going to have that 80. We're only going to have that few who can somehow survive with the lions and somehow grow. And people be like, ooh, look at that elephant. They did something special. That's the goal. And is it possible? Absolutely.
Jimmie, that was a mic drop right there as I'm thinking about your analogy. It got me really in my head thinking about that. I appreciate you so much for coming by.
I appreciate you.
And again, I love the realness and challenging not only me, but everybody on the other end of this podcast to think about what is their role and what should they be doing to make a bigger impact.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I appreciate it, my man.
Thank you.